When I first met Daniel, he seemed like everything I had ever dreamed of in a partner. Charming, attentive, ambitious, and endlessly romantic. He had a way of making me feel like I was the only woman in the room, the only soul who truly mattered in his orbit. I fell for him quickly, recklessly, without questioning the pieces of his life that never quite fit together. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. The way he always kept his phone face down, the business trips that seemed too frequent and too conveniently timed, the occasional distant look in his eyes when he thought I wasn't watching. But love makes you blind, or maybe it makes you see what you want to see. We married after 2 years of dating. It was a modest wedding, but it felt magical to me. Standing at the altar, his hand in mine, I believed we were promising each other forever. That night, as we danced under a canopy of lights, I thought I had found my happy ending. But fairy tales end. Reality doesn't. The first crack in our marriage came about a year later. Daniel began working late more often. At first, I believed him, it made sense. He was climbing the ladder at his firm. But when late nights turned into entire weekends away, I started to wonder. He explained it all so convincingly, though, that I felt guilty for even doubting him. Then came the birthday I'll never forget. It was my 29th, and I had been quietly hoping for a surprise. Daniel had always been thoughtful about celebrations, and I imagined maybe dinner, flowers, perhaps even a weekend getaway. But on the morning of my birthday, he kissed me quickly and said he had a big meeting he couldn't miss. He promised to make it up to me. That evening, I sat alone with a small cake my mother had dropped off earlier. No flowers. No gift. No Daniel. I told myself it was fine. That he was working hard for us. But when midnight passed and he still wasn't home, I cried myself to sleep. The next day, he arrived with roses and a new necklace, apologizing, swearing his meeting had run late. I wanted to believe him. I told myself love meant trust, and I put the doubts away. But life has a way of revealing truths when you least expect them. 6 months later, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a picture. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Daniel, my Daniel, smiling at a dinner table, his arm wrapped around a woman I had never seen before. Beside her sat 2 children, both with Daniel's unmistakable eyes. My blood ran cold. Attached to the photo was a message. You deserve to know the truth. I stared at my phone, unable to breathe, unable to move. My hands shook as the realization sank in. My husband, my partner, the man who had promised me forever, had another life, another family. For days, I lived in denial. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe the children weren't his. Maybe the woman was just a friend. But deep inside, I knew. And soon, the pieces began to click together. The business trips. The nights he didn't answer his phone. The forgotten birthday. All of it was because Daniel wasn't just my husband. He was hers too. But betrayal is never clean. It always comes with layers, with twists you can't see until they cut you open. And as I would soon discover, Daniel's lies went far deeper than I could have imagined. One evening, when he left for yet another trip, I followed him. My heart pounded as I trailed his car through winding streets until he pulled into a quiet suburban neighborhood. I parked a block away, watching as he walked up to a house, her house. Through the window, I saw him greet the woman from the photo with a kiss. The children ran to him, shouting "Daddy," as they wrapped their arms around his legs. I collapsed against the steering wheel, tears blinding me. Every illusion, every promise, every tender moment we had shared, shattered in an instant. And in that moment, I swore to myself, this story would not end with me as the victim. Daniel thought he could live 2 lives, but he had underestimated the one thing more dangerous than betrayal, revenge. I drove home that night in silence, my mind a storm of rage and disbelief. The steering wheel shook beneath my grip as I replayed what I had seen, Daniel kissing her, children calling him daddy, the casual ease of a man who had lived this life for years. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my tears had dried into something harder. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to collapse into his arms and demand explanations he would only twist into more lies. No, I was going to take control. But to outsmart him, I had to know everything. The next few weeks, I became someone Daniel had never seen before: patient, observant, invisible. I let him believe nothing had changed. I still kissed him goodbye in the mornings, still cooked his favorite meals, still smiled when he told me about his meetings. But inside, I was documenting every move he made. I started with his phone. He guarded it like a soldier, but everyone slips eventually. One night, after he fell asleep, I carefully slid it from his hand. My heart pounded as I unlocked it using his thumb. What I found made me sick. Messages with her. Photos of the kids. Plans for vacations. Conversations about school fees, birthdays, and even family holidays. He wasn't just cheating, he was living a double life, splitting himself between two families, two women, two worlds. And then, I saw my name. He had written to her, "Don't worry about her. She's just a convenience. Nothing compared to you and the kids." The words burned into my mind. A convenience. That's what I was to him, a placeholder, a second option, a fool. But betrayal wasn't the only thing I found. There were bank statements, too. Money transferred from our joint account to hers. Large sums, disguised as business expenses. Daniel wasn't just stealing my love, he was stealing my future, draining our savings to fund their life. That was the moment my grief transformed into resolve. He had taken years from me, stolen my trust, my dignity, even my financial security. I would take everything back, and more. I started with small steps. I copied every document I could find. Bank records, photos, messages. I backed them up to hidden drives, careful never to leave a trace. I researched divorce laws, property rights, custody battles. Even though we had no children, I wanted to understand every possible angle. Then I crafted my plan. Step 1. Build evidence. Step 2. Cut off his escape routes. Step 3. Expose him in a way that left no room for lies. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Daniel had planned another business trip. This time, I pretended not to notice, even helping him pack his suitcase. But once he left, I drove straight back to her neighborhood. From my car, I watched them again, him laughing with her, playing with the kids in the yard. My chest ached, but my resolve hardened. I snapped photo after photo, documenting everything. When I returned home, I sent copies of the pictures and financial records to my lawyer. Then, I waited. The night Daniel returned, he walked in with flowers, smiling as though he were the perfect husband. I accepted them with a soft smile of my own. He had no idea what was coming. "Did you miss me?" he asked, setting his suitcase down. "Of course," I replied, kissing his cheek. "But you look tired. Sit down, I'll pour you some wine." He had no idea the bottle I opened was not for celebration. It was for war. Because tomorrow, when the lawyer's summons landed in his hands, Daniel would finally realize the cost of betrayal. But what I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined, was that his lies went even deeper than a second family. There was another secret buried beneath it all, one that would turn my revenge into something far darker than I had ever planned. The summons was delivered on a Tuesday morning. I watched from the window as Daniel opened the envelope, his brow furrowing, his confident smirk fading into disbelief. He read the words once, twice, then crumpled the papers in his fist. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, storming into the kitchen where I sat calmly sipping coffee. I looked up at him, my voice steady. "It's divorce, Daniel. And it's everything you deserve." His face flushed red. "You don't know what you're doing." "Oh, but I do," I replied, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were the photos, the bank statements, the messages to his mistress, the evidence of his double life. His hands trembled as he flipped through it. For the first time since I had known him, Daniel looked powerless. "You ruined us," he whispered. "No," I said coldly. "You did. I'm just finishing what you started." The weeks that followed were chaos. Daniel tried to fight back, of course. He begged, he threatened, he spun lies about how she meant nothing, how he had been confused. But the evidence was overwhelming. His mistress and their children were real, his financial betrayals undeniable. In court, the judge sided with me. Our assets were divided in my favor. His reputation at work shattered when the truth spread. His perfect facade crumbled in front of everyone he once impressed. But while the legal battle raged on, a darker truth began to surface, one I had not prepared for. It started with a call from my lawyer. He had been reviewing Daniel's financial history in detail and noticed something unusual. There are transfers, he explained, not just to the other woman, but to offshore accounts. Large sums. It looks like Daniel has been hiding money, possibly for years. The realization hit me like a punch. He hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, he had been laundering our money, siphoning it into secret accounts while making me believe we were building a future together. I dug deeper, using what little access I had left. And then, the final, devastating truth revealed itself. Daniel's business trips weren't just visits to his second family. They were meetings with partners in a fraudulent investment scheme. He wasn't just a liar or a cheater, he was a criminal. And I had been his cover. His alibi. His shield. The night I confronted him, the house was quiet. He sat at the dining table, head in his hands, the weight of everything finally pressing down. Tell me the truth, I demanded, slamming the documents on the table. The accounts, the offshore transfers. How long has this been going on? His eyes met mine, hollow and defeated. You don't understand, he muttered. I had to. For them. For the kids. My stomach twisted. For them. You destroyed me, our marriage, our life, for them. He didn't answer. And in his silence, I understood. He had chosen them all along. I was never his first choice. I was never anything more than a backup plan. The next morning, I handed over everything I had to the authorities. Fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. The case against him built quickly. Daniel was arrested within weeks, his face plastered across the news as his empire collapsed. The mistress, I later learned, fled with her children, leaving him to face his downfall alone. And me. I stood in the wreckage of the life I thought I had, watching as the man I once loved was led away in handcuffs. People asked me if I felt relieved, if I felt vindicated, if revenge had healed me. But the truth was more complicated. Revenge had given me justice, yes. It had stripped Daniel of the lies he wore like armor. But it hadn't erased the nights I spent wondering why I wasn't enough. The mornings I woke up reaching for a man who never really belonged to me. And yet, as I signed the final divorce papers, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Freedom. Because betrayal may break you, but revenge gives you the strength to rebuild. And I promised myself this. I would rise from the ashes Daniel left behind. Stronger. Smarter. Untouchable.
是拍那些人，不是拍那个太阳
啊，拍人啊？
对啊，是拍人来来往往。